Hello, welcome to the pod with Garrett L. Conan. And this is where I interview local entrepreneurs and solopreneurs ranging from business founders and entrepreneurs to creatives and artists to peel back the curtain on their success and their stories so that hopefully we can extract some tools, tips, and tactics that they use to become successful. And through that, I hope to inspire you, the audience, as well as hopefully give you some tangible things you can apply to your personal or professional life so that you can grow and live the life of your dreams. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm here with Taylar Gomez, the founder of SYFT and current entrepreneur in residence at RevTech Ventures, a Dallas-based venture capital firm investing in early-stage retail technology. So Taylar, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so really excited for this conversation for many reasons. And one is how you're going about building SYFT.
Yeah.
And with the ground floor, you have a seasoned investor involved and helping you kind of build the product and kind of give you some advice and lessons and help with that. So to start off, what does entrepreneur in residence mean?
Yeah, I think for many different firms, it means different things, right? Like I've actually, when I Googled the term, I brought the idea to David and I was like, what is entrepreneur in residence? This sounds like something I'm interested in. It kind of seems like the next path I would take when I started working for him. And it really is kind of tailored to the firm itself and what they believe in. But for RevTech, it's kind of fostering a startup, an early stage startup, an idea, and really collaborating with the RevTech team. And all of the mentors that we have. And I actually office in the same office as David, so I can ask him questions, when I'm having a rough day, go down the hall and say, hey, let's sit down and talk this through. So it's really just having someone that's, in the building, almost like a poster child for what RevTech does and hopefully becomes a success.
Absolutely. Just go down the hallway and get your question answered. I mean, that's probably really helped grow you faster than you normally would have if you were on your own kind of, trying to build this and figure it out for yourself.
Absolutely, yeah.
So what is SYFT?
So SYFT is going to be the next big thing, the thing that's missing from all of our closets, hopefully. But it's a tool to help users discover their personal style and then shop those items online on their favorite websites. So the unique thing about us is we're not having you download a mobile app. We're not taking you away from retail. And coming from retail, that's really important for me. I want to help foster the retail connection and the e-com environment that they've already built rather than taking them away to a third-party place. So we're actually a plugin that follows you as you shop. And we understand your style preferences, and as you're shopping, we'll curate that collection for you in a separate window and hopefully help you find what you want to find.
Sounds like an amazing product, and I like the way that you said it's not this third party because therefore it's a plugin, and so people can really adopt that and engage with it quicker because they don't have to, download something. You don't have to educate them on what something new that they need to use is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is a plugin for those that are not super aware?
Yeah, so I always think about Honey, and if you're not familiar with Honey, it's just a tool to help you, in this case, shop, right? And Honey is the same. It helps you shop. It finds coupons and applies those coupons without you really knowing it's even there. So the idea behind SYFT is you download it once, and then you might forget it's even there, and then as you're shopping, you'll be surprised, like hopefully happily surprised that your items that match your preference will pop up.
Very cool. Yeah, I use some plugins as well, mainly for the coupons.
Yes.
There's a bunch of them, and they make money by basically seeing your data and probably selling it at some sort because obviously the plugin's for free.
Right. There's a data play and there's also affiliate commission. So whenever someone purchases something from SYFT, we would get a percentage of that.
Very neat. And so SYFT, what does that stand for?
Shop your favorite trends.
Shop your favorite trends. What a great name.
So it's kind of got that double meaning. We're mostly style-based. However, trends is a big component of what we do. And as you know, trends kind of interact with personal style. There's so many trends, especially for our customer on social media today. And it's all these interesting terms like cottagecore and e-girl. And like, what does that mean?
I don't know.
Exactly. Well, I've had to have a bit of a learning curve myself. But it's, they're so nuanced and intricate and interesting and different. And retailers are really having a hard time grasping what that means for the customer. So we're hoping to kind of package that and make it easier for their products to be sorted in those categories.
Very neat. And like you said, trends happen quickly and the whole world is moving quicker. And so it feels like you're on the front lines with gathering that data as shoppers shop.
Exactly. Yep.
So how did this idea come to you? Was there a certain experience that you had and you're like, wow, this could be so much better, or there's this problem that really needs to be solved?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a process to kind of get to this point. I think growing up, I was always into fashion, and I would kind of put crazy clothes, crazy things together. I would cut up shirts and pants and like make a unique outfit when I was a child. And I just really enjoyed just being creative in my personal style, and kind of continued that, and always had an entrepreneurial spirit to me. So I knew I wanted to either go into fashion, figure out some way to create a business in the fashion space, but I didn't know what it was, if it was a designer or if it was a brand. So I found UNT in Dallas and studied merchandising and digital retailing. And then while I was there, I really treated all of my classes like if I was in a business meeting, and really trying to, every time there was an idea or a suggestion or something that the professor would say, I would write down or jot down a note, how could I solve for this or make it better? So if there was a problem in the industry, how could I solve for it? So I really practiced that like problem solution oriented mindset. And then I think there was, one day in one of my classes, it was, I think, textiles, where we learned about fabrics. The professor said, hey, there's a competition, a scholarship competition for the digital retailing students. And if you're interested, let me know. A lot of students weren't really paying attention. And I was like, I've got to do this. Like, this is the time for me to kind of like figure out my entrepreneurial journey, and if I can solve a problem in the industry, a real world problem. So I entered that competition as a freshman. I think I was the youngest one. I created a virtual closet solution for the Macy's app. And then I ended up going far and actually making it to the NRF Big Show with that, and really gave me the confidence to think I could build something that would help retailers. And then I actually interned at Macy's my junior year, Macy's.com in San Francisco. And while I was there, I really got to see the behind the scenes of all of the things that are going on with when merchants are putting items online. And they're spending so much time doing that. But what is the customer really shopping for, right? Because when I was there, the interesting thing is I would hear merchants fighting with the buyers about whether or not a shoe was a flip-flop or a mule, or, like what was the language. But they weren't really listening to the customer. So I knew at that point there was something I could build to really help the retailers and the customers figure out their style and find those items much easier online.
Man, from a competition to then kind of getting the behind the scenes with the real world experience.
Exactly.
So then I believe you kind of formed a relationship with David Matthews. We'll get into how that first started, but you spoke to him, who's the managing director for RevTech, and your initial, you talked to him about your initial idea. Mm-hmm. And you said that David provided valuable guidance and encouraged me to refine my idea further before making any decisions.
Yeah.
So where were you in your ideation phase, and what were the next steps you took after that conversation?
Yeah, so I really accredit a lot of this to my mentor and also someone that's on the SYFT board and helped me formulate this idea. His name is Rich Last, and he actually started jcpenney.com. So he's here local. And the interesting thing about digital retailing is at the time when I went to school, it's a bit different now, but there wasn't many professors in the field. So we had to find people from the companies that actually worked, 9-to-5 jobs that came from the industry to teach this new concept of digital retailing and e-commerce. And even though it wasn't that long ago, we were still trying to figure out how to build this. And he really helped me along the way, and he introduced me to David Matthews. So David Matthews is on the board at UNT, the College of Merchandising, Hospitality, and Tourism. And Rich, we had kind of talked about this idea, and he said, you've got to meet, David Matthews. That would be the next step, is talking to an investor. So the idea was really at infancy stage. I mean, it wasn't much more than just a thought. I think I had a very simple deck. I worked with a really talented developer who actually helped build Bazaar Voice out of Austin, and was also on the board at UNT and also a mentor at RevTech. So he kind of helped me create like a wireframe, simple wireframe That's all I had was a simple deck, an idea.
But that was your
and a wireframe.
introduction for why you could get a meeting with David and kind of introduce yourself?
You know what? It wasn't even a meeting. I went to a RevTech event, and I was just kind of like, I've got to find this guy. I've got to talk to this guy. And I chatted with him, and that's when he said, we're not investing in really early stage at this right now, but why don't you get some experience, build it out a little bit more, and then come back. And actually, one of the principals at RevTech at the time, during the event, kind of took me to another room. We drew on the whiteboard and kind of figured out a strategy for SYFT. So that night, I went home and I was like, okay, now I've got my answer for the next steps, and this could actually be something.
So during this event, you went in another room and brainstormed with one of the partners or someone involved, the principal at RevTech.
Principal at RevTech, yeah.
What an experience.
It was, yeah. It was great.
How'd that happen? I mean, I can't even imagine, like, hey, principal at this VC firm, let's go in the other room and brainstorm and kind of, work through this idea.
Yeah, I think that's the amazing thing about RevTech is it's such a family over there. And David really has kind of input his values into the company of that of being kind and listening to people's ideas and hearing them out and really understanding the entrepreneur and getting to know them as a person. So I felt very comfortable walking in and chatting with them, and then, going up to the principal. His name was Johnny Fine, still works in venture, and he really helped me he was like, okay, you've got a great idea. Let's talk about next steps before you leave this party. Because as an entrepreneur, you want to know what the next thing to do is, right? It's a game of being really quick and fast. So that's what we did. We brainstormed, and it gave me a lot of confidence for the next step.
And so you kind of took that information, and what year were you in college?
I was, a senior.
A senior
in college.
And then I believe you got some real world experience. You maybe wanted to get some more behind the scenes. Talk to me about what you were looking for in going to the real world in the private companies, and what you gained from that and how you refined your idea.
A job with two of my mentors, Rich Last and Rich Hollander, and it's a lead generation agency. So they help retail solution or retail providers get in contact and set meetings with retailers. So the decision maker that they're trying to reach, they actually, instead of having to do the cold calls and have this giant sales team, they have the relationship. So we would actually help those retail solution or providers get in contact with the decision maker, set meetings, and then help them initially or eventually close deals.
And so why was it important for you to take that opportunity?
Yeah, because I knew that it would build my network, and being surrounded by those leaders, all of the partners and it's called Accelera, all of the partners at Accelera were either current retail executives or former retail executives. So I thought, okay, well, while I've got them on the phone, I mean, it was a small agency. It was three of us, right? And the only one in the office every day was me and Rich Hollander. And so I got to have this amazing mentorship experience with this man who's been a seasoned executive for many years, and ask him anything I wanted, day in and day out. And then while having these former and current retail executives on the phone, I would say, hey, and I've got this idea, do you think I could run it by you? And it was like 100% said yes. And I got feedback right away. So that was my initial validation of the idea and like out in the real world, right? Because David kind of gave me that, you're onto something, here's the next step. And I was like, let me validate this against the actual market that would be seeing this and potentially working with them. So that's when I got most of my feedback and kept going from there.
I believe that that's so smart, and kind of my personal experience is I shied away from the corporate world because you were being led by people that were a couple stages ahead of you, but not the really seasoned, executives such as the head of JCPenney.com and the head of Radio Shack or the founder, whatever you just mentioned. And so then in real estate, it is very, very narrow. And so therefore you're able to learn from those people that have risen to the top and can just impart all their knowledge. And if it's not you asking a question, you're absorbing their behavior, their mindset, how they lead, how they manage people, how they manage meetings. So that's super critical.
Yeah, it was great experience.
So then did you then jump into SYFT once you had that validation? Did you go anywhere else to learn before you eventually jump full into entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it was actually kind of a natural progression. So I started, I think it was a couple years in at Accelera. I was like, all right, I think it's time that I start putting more pen to paper here and figuring out exactly how this idea could scale. And having the resources, right, the people around me that could give me that guidance was, I knew it was good timing and I needed to really take advantage of that moment. But while I was there, actually one of our clients we had filmed our, we created a relationship as we were talking, and as I worked at Accelera, and they really liked me, and they said, hey, would you like to come work for us? And they were a startup out of Silicon Valley, and they said, would you like to run our biz dev? It's very small. We only have about 30 people in the company, but we think you'd be great to help build our business and development and work in the sales department. And I was like, well, that's kind of the one thing I'm missing in understanding a startup is that go-to-market strategy and really the sales portion of it. Like I knew how to talk to the customer at that point because I had been interacting with retailers this whole time, or that customer, right? But what about the other customer? It's actually the end user. So I wanted to gain more experience with that, and also just how to model out finances and what is the cost of a SaaS program, or a SaaS software? What is all of those intricacies of building and being at a startup I hadn't experienced yet, and I knew that would be helpful.
A more established startup that's kind of at
Exactly.
stage 2 instead of the 3-person group, you and the executive
Right.
founders.
And what better to do it than Silicon Valley, right? Because I knew that would
Absolutely.
be a great place to learn. So I
And meet
did that.
people.
Exactly.
More people, and I believe your first Accelera was in Dallas or
Accelera was in Fort Worth, yeah.
Fort Worth, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're in Silicon Valley, kind of more investor types as well as other different relationships there.
Exactly. So it was actually virtual, but I would fly in every now and then and meet with the team, which was great. And then ultimately I decided to leave because it was virtual. And for me, I know a lot of people thrive in that, but I feel as in a startup, my team is in the office often. Like we're together. We're at my house even. Like we're just always together. When we have to solve something, we get together and we figure it out. But being virtual, I felt a little disconnected. And I knew that was something that when I built my company, I would want to bring a culture of togetherness. And so I ultimately decided, we parted ways amicably. They're my mentors today. And I reached out to David and I was like, hey, first what I did, and I think is really important, is I took some time to think about my next step. So once I left there, I think for me, a lesson that I've learned, if you can take time between jobs to kind of reflect and figure out what your next step is, that's so important. And I know that we're not all granted that opportunity, but if you are, to really take that and reflect on what you want to do and spend time with yourself, because I don't think I would be here if I hadn't taken those few months to decide my next step.
What questions did you ask yourself during that time to help you think about your next step as well as reflect upon what you had just learned?
Yeah, I think it was, what did I enjoy most about my role? The kind of the simple pros and cons, right? It was the first thing. And that started leading me down some other paths. But what are the things that I need in my life to fulfill like my dream, right? And my dream was to ultimately help customers find their style. However I was going to do that, I had this idea, and I knew that would, answering these questions and figuring out how I was going to get there was really important. So the pros and cons of that job, I wasn't opposed to working for someone else. I mean, I always think that staying curious and learning from others is the best way to become the best leader. So I wasn't actually going to pursue SYFT at that time. It just kind of naturally fell into place as it was. But I guess it was the universe saying it was time, right? For someone who, I tend to lean on the side of perfectionist, it is hard to jump in and start it. But, the main questions were, what do you need from the next role that's going to make you happy? What are the pros and cons, and who do you want to work with? What kind of culture, the values, all of that was definitely in those questions I asked myself.
Most definitely. And were there any kind of questions or advice that you got from those two previous, roles at Accelera and the other role that kind of stood out and still to this day kind of are on your shoulder or you think about?
Question. Like, what do you mean question?
Any advice that they gave or any frameworks for decision making?
Oh, yeah. I think the founder of the company that I was at I really admire him. he had a really interesting way of running the company. And I think I say interesting because I haven't seen it before, but he was he was in every meeting across every department. I mean, he was really present. So he saw himself as a team member in each of the departments. And the sales team was really, I mean, it's so important because it's that final step, right? It's the thing that you're going to market with. It's what people are seeing. It's the face of the product. So he was constantly in there, and also was really open to taking meetings at any point. If he had time in his day, he would say, you know, set a time on the calendar, and hearing his people out, hearing everyone out in the company and really what they wanted. I think really just the leadership and leading with empathy was huge.
And being available. It sounds like he was available, and that seems like the new modern CEO is you're not sitting in your ivory tower corner office with your door shut.
Yeah.
You're available to the team. They want to see you. They want to interact with you, and that's you're accessible.
Exactly.
Very neat. So you said that the purpose and your goal and mission was to help people find their personal style.
Mm-hmm.
So what does style mean to you?
Yeah, this is an interesting question, and it's different. I think it's different for everybody, but style for me is not only personal expression, but it's also identity. And I think that's for everyone. Like, some of us go to work wearing a uniform, right? That becomes your identity. And that's a sense of style, right? I think that it exudes confidence. It's whatever you're putting on that you feel good in is going to help you live your life better. I think it'd be more positive. And I think, you know, a lot of entrepreneurs, which is interesting, and that I've talked to that aren't doing anything in fashion, they're like, I wear the same shirt and same pants every day. That's my uniform, because it's less decision making, right? Because as an entrepreneur or a founder, you're making so many decisions in one day. Let's cut it out into one less. But for me, it's the time to actually express my creativity and think outside the box. And like, when I'm waking up and trying to style an outfit or looking what's in my closet, it's inspiring for me, and it kind of opens my mind to possibilities for the day. So it's a little deep, but it's kind of
I love that. The second part resonates with me. I mean, I feel since it is your identity, you can change your identity by putting on different styles.
Exactly.
And, you know, be a little bit more eccentric or be a little bit more toned down on certain days. And you never know when you're just feeling yourself and you put on that outfit, and then the creativity starts flowing, and you're thinking of ideas, your energy flow is better. So I think that Steve Jobs definitely gave people that motto of just wear the same thing. But there's others that, like yourself, believe that the personal style can really enhance your life, your creativity. So for people that are trying to find their style and create that, what tips would you give to them?
Yeah, I would. It's such a personal thing. I think first figure out who you are as best as you can. I think we're always doing that, right? But figure out who you are as best as you can, and things that you feel good in. And reflect on the times when you've worn something and that made you more confident. Because at the end of the day, I really think confidence is key, because whatever you put on, if you're confident in it, people are going to enjoy seeing it. You're going to enjoy wearing it. Like, I think that's kind of the main purpose of it. But really figuring out who you are and your values, and also what colors you like. I mean, what inspiration do you have? I know a lot of people like to dress sustainably. Maybe that's a huge value system that you have. Figuring out kind of creating a sustainable wardrobe is huge. Yeah, I think those would kind of be the key things I would say.
You know, I am going to push back on one thing you said there, which is, you know, you can dress confidently and other people will value that. I think there's a lot of people that, you know, see someone dress confidently and are jealous, or they're kind of, you know, they put an image on that person and then they reflect that to them and make a comment or might say something or be like, oh, that person's trying to show off. And I feel like a lot of people internalize that, and therefore they don't kind of go more towards their style because they're afraid of what other people will think.
Yeah, that's definitely valid. I mean, I felt that before, right? Like, you don't want to, I think I have this thing where I want to make everyone feel comfortable all the time, right? So I don't want to seem like I want the attention. But I really think that at the end of the day, that says more to do about the other person, right? That has more to do about the other person, and what they're going through. So what I would say to that is befriend that person, and, you know, talk to them about personal style and how you dress yourself, because, you know, kindness is definitely something that I practice, and I think that's super important. So if someone was saying that, I mean, I've had that experience before, But it really has to do with kind of where they're at in their life and why they're feeling bad. Maybe they just need a little help with their style.
Exactly. I like that view. And then also I feel like it is a little bit of a snowball where if you kind of go a little bit out of your comfort zone and try some article of clothing on that maybe not totally on your current brand,
Yeah.
well, then you feel a little bit more confident and hey, maybe I can call that executive over at, Costco, wherever,
Yeah.
retailer it is and ask them a question or pitch my product or, you know, introduce myself to that person because I'm wearing this article of clothing and it made me feel better. And I mean, what's not to try about it? What's the worst thing that can happen? You get someone that gives you a little funny look. All right, well,
Exactly.
you got a funny look. So be it.
Oh, yeah, there's so much that goes into fashion theory. I think one interesting thing when I was in school and that we were taught is the study of students who wore a doctor's coat taking an exam versus not. And their grades were better ultimately just because of the confidence it exuded and they feel like they had an identity wearing that coat. So actually me and my friend in that class, we came to the exam wearing a coat and the teacher loved it. But I think that that's like, it is like a huge part of what can help you be confident in doing your next thing. And if it starts with one article of clothing, I think that's all you need. Maybe you have a favorite pair of shoes, that would help you.
Guys certainly do. And they wear that till
Yeah.
it shreds and everything.
Absolutely.
Yes. No, that's amazing. So back to SYFT, how long have you been an entrepreneur in residence and what stage are you at with the company?
Yeah, so I've been an entrepreneur in residence for about 6 months now. So 6 months for a startup is like 6 years, but it really we're at the MVP stage and we're at the final end of building our demo and being able to share it with the world. I think it's been so fun and rewarding to actually build a working product because having the vision for so long and then seeing it come to life is really amazing.
Share it with the world. What goes through your head when you say that? Is it an obstacle? Is it confidence? Are you scared? Like when you say that, what comes to mind?
I think it's just all about learning. Like I really think that I'm just excited about it. I don't think that I'm hesitant. Of course, there can be things that are better. It could always be better, right? But I think that's just a part of it. I think it's a part of learning and building a company and getting feedback is so exciting for us. And we're excited to do that. And we're going to start on college campuses because that's really where our users are. And it's a place where they are in one place, right? Like we've got a lot of users on college campuses. So we're excited to get feedback in that.
Well, and it also could be better because MVP stands for minimum viable product. So
Exactly.
you have to be selective in the features.
Yeah.
So therefore you can build something cost effective, pivot, et cetera. Can you kind of walk us through, what's the most exciting part about building the MVP and then how you make choices for what features to include versus not to include?
Yeah, so we are a design first company, and that's really what we believe in. So my fiance is actually one of our co-founders, and he's a UX designer. So for us, it's always keeping the user in mind. And any feature that benefits that is kind of where we're headed. Now, there's so many features you can include in something like this because it's so personal. I mean, we have so many exciting features that I can't wait to share when they come out because it's going to be great. But especially for an MVP, the kind of narrowing that down was really challenging for me. And I think that was the most challenging thing. But just keeping the user at the forefront of my mind and what they really want. And how can we show that with this as minimal amount as possible, right?
Do you have any design philosophies that you guys go by, or when you're making a decision, how do you know it's the right way long term or that it fits the brand?
We're developing that now, I would say. I think that, again, once we get more user feedback, it'll kind of give us a good direction if we are in the right direction. But what's really cool, too, is that I actually have a group of interns from UNT that is that exact age demographic that we're targeting. So we're constantly running ideas by them and seeing if this is something that makes sense and something they would shop. Because as you know, when you're working on something so closely, you can't see it from an outside perspective. So that's really important for me is talking to them and talking to the user as much as possible as we're going through this. But I think our philosophy is just easeability, like what's going to be fun for the user. And we want it to look good. I think MVP is kind of just putting something together, but we really wanted to take our time with it and show off the design practices that we do have.
Because you kind of know that there's a problem there. It's not about, product market fit in the problem per se, potentially.
Yeah.
It's more about, creating that design and the product itself to match that, solution that you have in mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And I guess I kind of skipped over, but basically you presented this idea to David after, you had this full-time experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then he said, yes, and welcome aboard to be an entrepreneur in residence and your idea. And then he also invested in the company, six figures.
Mm-hmm. So we're a pre-seed investment. So it's less than that, but we had developed a relationship for all that time, right? Because I had pitched him when I was a senior in college, gone off to get experience, kind of communicated every now and then, would see him at events. But I think that, then working at RevTech, when I had reached out to him, he was like, why don't you come on as director of community, kind of understand the entrepreneur community of Dallas, foster some relationships in this way. You're really well versed in the retail world, but what about the entrepreneur world? See what it takes to kind of become an entrepreneur. And after I did that for about 8 months, then he was like, I think you're ready, honestly, to become a founder, a full-time founder with my support. And, we'll be here to guide you, but it seems like you're at that point now where the idea is ready to come to life.
The idea's ready, the founder's ready, and let's go.
Exactly, yeah.
I think that's super critical that you formed all these relationships to help you in the ideation stage. I feel like that helped, remove maybe some fear about launching. Talk to me a little bit more about why it was so important to foster these relationships before you started SYFT.
Yeah. Well, I really wanted to make sure that it was a market fit. I mean, that was huge for me. I knew it was a good idea, from the outside, and being a fashion consumer myself, I knew that it's something that we needed, and I knew that my friends would enjoy it. But having those relationships was so important to me because I could kind of hear back from the retailer what their idea was. Had they seen something like this before? Does this make sense? Is it something that would compete with them, or would they see it with open arms? So that was extremely important to me, to foster those relationships and also learn from leadership again. That was huge.
And it's a great way to de-risk an idea because so many people are fearful of starting because of the risk it takes in entrepreneurship. And how do you mitigate that? I think what you've done is a great way to mitigate that risk.
Yeah.
So Taylar, talk to us a little bit more about the SYFT product, what you have in mind for the end consumer, and how it will help them in their shopping experience.
Yeah, when I first came up with the idea, I had pages and pages of like, this feature and this feature. Like, I really envision it as being like your best friend in your pocket, or it's going to be desktop, but I eventually see it going to mobile and then into physical stores. So I want it to be that best friend that you take shopping with you wherever you go. Like when you go shopping with your friend and they say, hey, I think you'd look good in that or look good in that, and giving you that confidence to really purchase something. So I want people to feel like they can't shop without it. Like it's something that they need. It's going to have, features like, I'll even tell you an exclusive feature that will be so fun is the virtual closet that I had, kind of made previously. And I was like, I've got to apply this to SYFT because anything you purchase in SYFT will then go to a virtual closet and then eventually be styled into an outfit. So,
well, you have, I don't know if it's the first customer or what number it is, but I would definitely be a customer. This sounds incredible.
I'm excited. Yeah.
Because you're always wondering, well, does this really match this? Like, I don't know, I think kind of maybe, but it would be great to get some feedback real time.
Yeah. And we also have a really, really cool feature that is showcasing celebrity and influencer styles. So it's almost like a storefront that follows you as you shop. So you can have your own personal storefront, or you can see your favorite influencers' items that they would shop from any website.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
And so this product is obviously very technology driven, whether it's design, whether it's the back end, probably AI, machine learning, whatever it is. Yeah. So how is you as a founder who's, I don't think, tech savvy in that regard, build it? No? Okay.
Not quite.
not to make a judgment, but you're more digital retailing.
Exactly.
And so how have you kind of led that team? How does that intertwine between the tech team and then you with the visionary?
Yeah, so we have an amazing developer. He's a student from UTD. And it took me, really the reason why it took me a few years to to feel confident and have less fear in building this was finding the right person to build it. And the conversation we had initially together, what I, really said, I know that you can build this. I have confidence you can build it, but do you want to build it? And is this something that you're interested in? Are you even interested in fashion? Because I think there's so many talented developers, but you really have to have a piece of them in the product in order to want to make it successful. And I think that was a huge learning point for me because I had talked to developers along the way, but it wasn't really something they were interested in. And that's totally fine. But the developer we have now sees the vision, and that's huge. And I think that's really what's made us successful. Open line of communication. We're a close-knit team, and I'm learning something from him every day. But he's also expressed that he's learned quite a bit too, being here, things that he didn't know before. He's still in college, so he's, so talented in his own right, and really has just brought a lot of joy to the team and kind of seeing the vision further than what we could just from an idea.
I think that's so wise of you to know that those early employees are so critical and take the time to find the right people.
Yeah.
So what other attributes were you looking for besides, they wanted to be interested in the product and the vision and obviously had the talent? Was there anything else that you were looking for in that developer tech side?
Yeah, I think maybe against some other opinions is finding someone young who understands the customer. I think what's interesting is going to, as we raise our next round of funding, investors tend to look for a seasoned developer. I would say that he understands our customer, though, to the core. And I think that's so important to have that business mindset and product mindset and being able to build it at the same time. So he may need guidance, but he knows who we're selling to and who our users are. So that's kind of what I took into account as well. And just having curiosity for the product and wanting it to be successful. I know it seems so basic and simple, but these were factors that I kind of found myself asking more and more and realizing the importance of the answers to these.
I love the fact that you went against the grain. Any other going against the grain decisions that you've made or strategies you've taken?
Yeah, so it's not something that I really wanted to go against the grain with, but being more of a solo founder. So I've got co-founders, but in the day in and day out, it's just me. And not having
Sorry, fiance.
Yeah, right. Well, he's got a 9-to-5 job, so he's able to put in hours, when he can. But being the day in and day out person, I mean, now it's a bit different because I've got this amazing team, and it does get challenging. But I would say the support system is like my co-founder. Like, I've got so much support system. But
for those that also have ideas and are not technical themselves, do you have any other advice for them?
Yeah, I think it's really about building that community. And as simple as going to these events where the developers are. There's tons of events in Dallas and in large cities that either they're entrepreneurial events or hackathons or, wherever you can go and meet one person, it's kind of like a web, then they'll introduce you to a friend who knows a friend. And I credit my network to really where I'm at today. So I would say to start kind of find that idea that you're looking for, maybe do some simple research, right? So you can kind of go in with knowing what to ask and having a valuable ask to a developer. But learning as much as you can, some framework even, and then kind of going from there and finding someone that can really represent that piece for you.
I think that's great. And so why was it so important for you to join RevTech Ventures?
Yeah, so RevTech is the venture firm to receive funding from in this retail market, right? Their thesis is all about the customer and the user experience, the journey from logistics to e-com to personalization. That's where they invest. So I knew that, and David being such a good person, I mean, I really connected with David a lot, and I trusted him, and he trusted me, and that says a lot when you're, betting on somebody. That's huge for both parties to have trust in each other. So it was kind of a no-brainer. I knew it was exactly where I would get funding, whether or not I knew the team, but being a part of the team and knowing them just gave me all that much more confidence.
The domain-specific expertise are so valuable in that.
Yes.
So to those who are considering RevTech or not, what would you say is the profile of someone who should join RevTech?
Yeah. So right now they're investing in women-led companies. That's kind of this fund. So I would say any women out there who've got a great idea, either a retail concept, a product, or if they can help retail in any way, or the user experience, the user journey, I think that's huge. They've got a great portfolio of companies today. So I think that women first is really, really interesting. And of course, I enjoy it. I think that's awesome that they're doing that and shedding some light. So yeah, that's what I would suggest.
What are you most excited about for the future of digital retailing?
Well, I would say obviously SYFT being a part of it, I'm excited about. But going along with that, I think personalization becoming just greater and more valued by retailers so that they can target their audience much better. I think that's huge. I think AI, of course, is the buzzword right now, but how do you apply that in a retail setting? And I think it's much harder than we think, right? Especially these enterprise retailers, these department stores. How are they going to apply AI? I don't think it's going to happen overnight. So I think SIFT can kind of give them that edge and help them in that way. But I'm just really excited for personalization and not feeling like you have to browse for hours to find something that you want.
I think it's going to unlock shopping for many people who, like you said, don't want to browse for hours or don't know their style, and really help people along this journey. I think it's going to be great for everyone.
Yeah, me too.
And then what are the top 3 things people get wrong about retail?
Yeah, I think the first one, which you've probably heard before, is that e-commerce is eliminating physical stores. I don't think that is true. In fact, I see SIFT in the physical landscape at some point. But as much fun as it is to browse online, it's always, we're going to go in the stores eventually at times, right? And find items, or does it fit right? And figuring all of that out, I think that I'm a believer in physical retail. I enjoy shopping in store. So I would say that that's still going to be prevalent in the future. The other thing I think is data. I think that collecting a lot of data is important, but more importantly, what are you doing with that data? And I think that that's kind of a misconception maybe by retailers, is that let me gather as much data as possible, but you've got to turn it into something, and you've got to make it valuable to the user, and figuring out how to apply it. I mean, that's huge. And I got to see that, behind the scenes in many internships I had, which really led me to SIFT, but figuring out the value behind that data. And let me think about the third one, because there was 3, right?
I think you covered, I think that was 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
no, those are great. And so you have Jove as well listening in here. Talk to us about your team and what roles you have currently, on the team.
Yeah, so we really believe another thing that is a little bit different is we actually started with building out our presence on social media really early on, because we knew that we needed to build trust with the audience if we're a user-first company before we even show them what we're building and what we're making. So that was huge for us. And what was really great is one of my other co-founders, who's Stuart Matthews, David's son, was kind of quieting down a production company that he was running, and was really interested in SIFT and loved the idea, and enough so that he saw himself helping build it with, hands-on. And so he's on our team now, and he is head of content and production, and is really, we've got all this amazing equipment and amazing expertise and guidance on how to make these social videos, and really just concepts for our users to understand, whether it's teaching different style techniques or doing style breakdowns, which is what we're doing lately, where we take celebrities and kind of break down styles that we've seen them in. And at the core, what is their style, right? And different occasions. So recently we did Kendall Jenner going on a coffee run. Like, what is she wearing most of the time? There's really a pattern that you start to see with anybody's style. And so we're kind of dissecting that using our algorithm and sharing it with the audience.
Very neat. And so that's on Instagram. Where is that on for the audience?
Yeah, so it's on TikTok, but we also have it on YouTube Shorts as well. So that's kind of our biggest platforms.
Under SYFT?
Under SYFT. Yeah.
SYFT.
That's correct.
All caps.
Yeah. Yes. Uh-huh.
Great. What are some other kind of content pieces that you've created?
So we have done kind of podcast style, anything to educate our users kind of on the direction we're taking. We haven't really presented the full idea because we're kind of waiting. We want to get some feedback and get some people to trust that we understand what style is to begin with, and really connect with me as just a girl who is in that customer demographic, who loves fashion, wants to shop with ease online. And how can we do that? Before we even introduce the idea, we're kind of building this trust around our audience, and hopefully get the viewership where we want it to be, and have people interacting in our comments and asking us to do another celebrity on our trend and style breakdowns. And have an amazing team member, Jove, who runs all of our brand strategy, and she's a micro influencer herself, so she really understands the customer that's on TikTok. And there's so many nuances to these keywords and the algorithm that's presented. So how can we kind of catch that wave and then hopefully show up on your For You page on what we're wearing that day or how to style your favorite outfit?
Build that community, build that trust through kind of education, entertainment, kind of all that.
Exactly.
I think it's smart that you said, show yourself as well, Taylar, behind the scenes and who's building this company, because so many people, it used to be, I believe, that it was brands wanted to act as if they were people, and that's what they want to show you. But now it's the audience and the customer wants to know who's the person behind the brand.
Exactly. People want to break down the walls now, the audience. They really want to see, how are they making that? Or if it's a clothing brand, where is that fabric sourced from? They really want to see the whole kind of life cycle and the day-to-day. So we want to let people in and really be kind of vulnerable in that way as well. So something that we're starting to implement now is like showing my day-to-day life. Like, what does a founder do? I'm saying that I'm a CEO, but what do I really know? What have I'm learning so much along the way that it feels like I don't even deserve that title yet. I think if you start a business, you're calling yourself a CEO, let's make it not so like putting those people on a pedestal. I think that's so important because I'm still young, and I am the customer target. I'm the demographic. So I want to relate to them, and I want to show them that you can also have a title of CEO if you want to, and here's how you can do it. So we really enjoy kind of interacting with our audience in that way, and hopefully we'll do it more.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. And I mean, to me, the title of CEO at your stage means, well, my list of job titles is so long I can't fit it on one page.
Right.
So cleaning up the office is my title, and making sure everyone's okay, and
Exactly.
and ordering the food and the drinks and whatever it is, and making sure that the sales are going through in the marketing. I mean, you're encompassing all of it at a startup.
Yeah, and I actually like saying founder. I usually don't say CEO because I think it's because of the network that I had with these former CEOs, CDOs, CMOs, and I'm looking at kind of like their long journey to get there. And I'm not saying that you can't have that title at a young age, but I feel I have a lot of respect for those that have been CEOs of large corporations. And I think eventually I'll kind of fit into that mold and in that role. But right now I see myself as a founder, and all of my team as really being a part of it too. Like we're all building it together, no matter if you're the intern or if you're running our content. We're kind of all at the same level.
That totally makes sense. Well, this part is kind of a bunch of more random questions, a little more about you,
Okay.
and great. So to start off, for the audience looking to boost their well-being, what's your go-to life hack or daily ritual that keeps you on top of your game?
Yeah, I'm a very active person. So working out is huge for me. So anything that you can do, even if it's going for a walk, like a daily walk, I would say like sun. I know it's kind of a dreary day today, but even if it's just getting a little bit of vitamin D, that's huge for me. And then reading is major component of my life. So reading and being active.
That's great. Can you share a memorable aha moment or realization that significantly influenced your approach to business or life?
I think letting go of fear was kind of an aha moment. And I certainly couldn't have done that without the people around me. But I think that was huge. I mean, fear can be a helpful tool in some capacity, but when it's kind of hindering you from doing things that you want to do, then you're kind of stuck in this perpetual cycle of feeling like you're not where you want to be. So kind of letting that go and taking the leap, at RevTech, and talking to David about taking investments and being a founder. I think that was huge for me. So that's kind of been my aha moment throughout this journey.
Yeah, and I don't know if there's a specific moment, but for me, it was posting my first, launching video and
Yeah.
podcast on social media. I don't think I'd posted on social media in probably over a year, maybe a
Yeah.
year and a half. I didn't even know how to do a reel. I didn't
Yeah.
know anything
Things move
about it.
quick. Things move quick.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
then once you learn it, it's like, wait, that's not too bad, and I can just keep
Exactly.
posting, and it's not the end of the world. So,
Right.
was there a specific time that you overcame a fear and like kind of opened your eyes to that?
I think it's when I received my pre-seed funding. And I was like, okay, it's real. It wasn't that bad. Like, okay, now it's something that I can envision. I feel like just taking that leap, and it's tough because you're in a comfortable job and a position, and then all of a sudden you're your own boss. Um, there is fear around that, right? Just wanting to make sure that you have some structure in your life, and so you have to start creating that own structure for yourself. But I think when I first, got that funding, um, it was realizing that we're all human going through this experience, and okay, I can do this. Like, that really helped take down the curtain of fear for me.
What's something you have eliminated from your life that's made the biggest impact?
Yeah. Something that's huge is multitasking. I think I've eliminated that as much as I possibly can. I don't know. I think it's tough because as an entrepreneur, that's like a huge. You from the outside, it's like, okay, my every day is going to be something new. You're constantly switching your brain from one subject to another. But if you can keep it, a singular task at a time, I think that's really important. And I even give myself breaks in between each task, just to let myself, in my mind, kind of restart and prepare for that next conversation, whether it's a meeting I'm in, or maybe we're doing a creative photo shoot or making content. It's such a different leadership style. And I'm talking to someone new, I'm talking to my team, or I'm talking to an investor. I kind of let myself reset before trying to do too many things at one time.
That's a great answer. Who's had the biggest influence on you and why?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was one person. I think it's actually like my entire family. So I would say my fiance has had a huge impact on me. Um, and and I was thinking about this actually more recently. And I have two brothers. So one brother is so disciplined. He gets up at like 4 a.m. every day to train. So and then my other brother in the army is waking up early to go and train and serve our country. And then my fiance is just so disciplined with his work, and he's also an amazing architect and constructed a lot of things in our home. So I really look up to them a lot, and they influence kind of like where I'm at, and also just having willpower is huge. And with my brothers and I, we're always pushing each other more, and like, you can do that, don't tap out yet. It's not that bad. You just got to get up and keep going. And I even text my brother frequently about like, what's some advice, and he is a proponent of just like meditating, breathing, exercising, and we talk about that often, and that really helps me.
It's amazing to me how many conversations talk about meditating, breathing, prayer, visualization. It's got to
Yeah.
be close to 80% of my podcast. We end up
Wow.
talking about it and
Yeah.
how it's helped entrepreneurs so much. Was
Yeah.
there any one of those in particular that you do or have kind of a regimen or that's kind of helped you the most?
Yeah, I think with the exercise, when I'm taking that time out to go to the gym, it could be in the form of yoga. I really like cycling. Maybe it's lifting weights. What during that time is kind of when I'm not sitting down to meditate, but I'm almost meditating throughout the workout. So I that's kind of the time that I've let my mind kind of turn off, focus on what I'm doing in that moment before I start the day and become a kind of a totally different, had to put on that different persona. So that's kind of my regimen for that. It really all happens at the gym.
I think that's a great answer because so many people think of meditating, you're sitting down, your
Yeah,
back straight, your feet are planted on the ground,
right.
thinking about your breath.
Which is great too. I
Yes,
mean, great form of meditation.
form of meditation. And I think you brought up a great idea, or not a great idea, but great change of form, which is just about being present.
Yeah.
And whether it's working out, whether it's you're in a flow state playing tennis or pickleball, whatever it is, just meditating and being there in the moment. And I think that's a great thing there. What talent do you have that you are not using?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Something that I'm using that's not relating to my business is interior design. So I use that talent at home, but I don't use it in my daily practice. I mean, I used it like to do our office, but it's not something that I practice often. I think another talent that I may have, but I haven't really explored it, is like public speaking. I haven't done it often, but I find joy out of doing it the few times that I have, which is wild because I was like so shy growing up. I mean, and like just kept to myself and really was just kind of scared of the world. But I've really come to find that I enjoy public speaking.
Well, you're doing great on this first podcast, whether it's public speaking or just speaking in general.
Thank you.
Definitely. How do you find design styles and how do you cultivate the content you consume to then kind of input it in yourself to then produce an output of your design take?
Yeah, so specifically the channels, like where do I
Yes.
search? So I'm a big YouTube user. So I've got kind of like these YouTubers that I'm loyal to, and it runs the gamut of just like pop culture, or it's like design or fashion, like runway reviews and people kind of reviewing what's in for the season. And then also just thought leaders. I follow a lot of thought leaders as well, and productivity people.
Who are some thought leaders that you follow and what channels are there?
Yeah, so I would say some of the thought leaders that I follow tend to be more on the podcast side. So I like Robin Sharma, who wrote the 5 a.m. Club. I know it's kind of controversial, waking up at that time, or if people really follow that. But also Man's Search for Meaning, a huge kind of influence in my life and book that my younger brother recommended to me. And he's really intellectual and likes to read like the classics. And he was like, this is a good kind of intro and just a book to kind of come back to when you're feeling down or kind of lost. So that's something that, I always go to my books. I highlight them, annotate them, and use them as kind of a guide.
Yeah, because that way you can learn from them and apply it to your life.
Yeah.
Well, as we close up, is there anything else that we haven't talked about that, even though we covered quite a bit, that you would like to say to the audience here?
I think I'm so open to conversation. And if anybody wants to reach out, because being in this journey as a founder and a young founder, it can be confusing and daunting on what direction to take and what your future is and how are you going to build this and sustain it, and all of those questions that come with being a founder. And where do you start? I think that's like the biggest question, is like, where do you start? For me, it was really a natural progression. I think if you kind of let it be natural, you'll get to where you want to be. But patience is huge in that too, and what I've definitely put to practice. But I would just say I'm open to conversation. So if anybody wants to talk through an idea or talk through being a founder, I'm definitely available for that.
Great. And where can they find you? Where can they contact you?
Yeah, so either LinkedIn, Taylar Gomez, or on TikTok. You can either my personal, Taylar Alexandra, or SYFT.
There it is. And Taylar's Taylar.
Yes.
For those listening.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, Taylar, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much for coming on the pod.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.